Hello, Internet, and welcome to They Play Games, a podcast where we talk about games and such. My name is Paul. We have
Ray
and
Steve,
and we're gonna go around and introduce ourselves to you guys at home. Steve, what do we got on the docket here?
we are looking at E3 impressions from all the big three, Xbox, Sony, Nintendo. Also going to touch on indie titles and third-party games. Gaming finds, best gaming finds from our lives. Basically, anywhere we found a good deal, garage sales, online sales, any of that kind of stuff. Proud gaming moments, and possibly competitive games. Ray.
Hi, I'm Ray. Steve just read the list. So since we're doing introductions, I'm not going to read the list again. Instead, let's just talk about my favorite types of games. I prefer nothing but hardcore Japanese dating sims.
Anytime you say hardcore in Japanese are the first two words in a sentence, I get nervous.
You should, because it's a very nervous genre, and I don't actually like those games, but I do like Japanese RPGs. I also like collectible card game games, kind of like Hearthstone, and I'm a recovering MMO addict. I take it one day at a time.
Steve, what are you into?
I play a lot of competitive games, a lot of shooters, fighting games like Smash Brothers and Street Fighter. I also touch on RPGs. And Paul,
where do you touch RPGs?
Where do
you touch RPGs? Because we're not going to talk about.
Is it like the hardcore dating sims?
No, I don't touch the hardcore dating sims. As I don't stroke them the way you do.
Oh, okay.
But no, I do touch Final Fantasy, things of that nature, stuff like Chrono Trigger.
That's it. I'm kind of an all-rounder. I love fighting games. I do play a JRPG here and there. Touch on an RTS every once in a while, but my biggest addiction is definitely Dark Souls. I'm the only Dark Souls addict here, so I'll try to keep quiet because I can go nuts with the Dark Souls.
Anyone who likes Dark Souls can go nuts with it. Now, you say you touch an RTS once in a while. Now, what types of RTS? Like the StarCraft type or like the Age of Empires type?
I've played all of them. I've been playing them since they were new. I had the first Age of Empires. I had the first StarCraft. Obviously, I played Warcraft. I played whatchamacallit, from Westwood. Back when it was still Westwood Studios, before it was EA. Command and Conquer series. I used to love that.
Ooh. Yeah, I played Red Alert and 3.
I played Legend of Carandia from Westwood Studios.
Oh my goodness.
That is an old PC game.
You're showing our age, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely showing my age with the adventures of the Jester Malcolm.
First episode, everyone knows we're already early 80s.
Roughly.
Of course. It was the best decade to be a kid.
Roughly. I was very sad to see all those dinosaurs die.
Land Before Time?
Land Before Time.
Littlefoot makes me cry.
All right, so let's get going on E3 stuff. We're
getting into it.
Let's start.
We're not going to talk about what we're playing now. That's on the list. You read the list.
You know what, man?
Stick to the list.
All right.
It's more free flow, man.
Let's start with Paul. Paul's playing...
What is Paul playing? Paul's playing Witcher 3, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Guess I'm still playing Smash 4 and Street Fighter. But
Bloodborne a little bit.
I didn't finish Bloodborne. It's not a strike against Bloodborne, but I don't know. I bought a PS4 for Bloodborne. I was loving the ever-loving crap out of it, and then I got to a point, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I got a point maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the way into the game. I hit kind of a brick wall, which happens in these games. Took a break, and my gamer ADD overcame me, and I still haven't gone back. And I'm halfway through Witcher 3.
Now, if you did go back to Bloodborne, is it one of those situations where you have to start all over, or do you think you'd be able to pick up where you left off?
I'd definitely be able to pick up where I left off. It's kind of a play level by level kind of thing. So it's not so much like an enthralling story as a standard RPG is. It's more of an action game. So I could definitely go back.
You don't think you'd lose any of the skills, though? In terms of,
Oh, come on. Who are you talking to? No.
I don't know. I honestly barely know.
No, really, a little rusty at first, but I'm sure I'd go back to it. I think, though, the motivation that I really had was I was going to have friends to play it with, and unfortunately the multiplayer was kind of poopy when the game was new, and I haven't gone back in recent months to try it out again, but I kind of lost steam, I think, because I didn't get to play with people. That's really what I wanted to do.
Okay. Well, unlike you, I really avoid playing with people in games. I buy it's weird. I'm this, again, recovering MMO addict, played WoW for 8 years, had a guild and everything, but then I just always found myself doing the solo stuff. So the one thing that kept me going in that game towards the end was the idea of collecting armor for what's called transmog, where I was able to just make myself look like any old set of armor. So I was doing all the solo stuff, but now I'm playing some other stuff that's massively multiplayer. I'm doing air quotes, which you can't see, in Marvel Heroes 2015, the free-to-play game from Gazillion, headed by David Brevik, who helped make the first Diablo game.
Right, I remember that.
And that very much informs the type of game that is. It's a fun free-to-play game. And when I say free-to-play, I mean I've spent over $300 in it over the course of 2 years.
Yeah, sounds
completely serious. When I say free-to-play, I mean most expensive game possible.
Dude, if it makes you happy, that's the most important thing.
It doesn't. When I looked on Steam and I saw how much I spent initially when I was at like $200, I stopped playing the game for a good 6 months because I was just like, what the hell am I doing? I need to stop this.
Has anybody gotten involved in games like Bravely Default? Or, I know you're playing Final Fantasy Record Keeper, Ray, but have you guys actually sat down and spent the money? I've done it. I spent like $100 on Bravely Default.
Oh, Bravely Default I spent no money on. I beat the game, mastered every job class, got everyone to 99 without spending a cent on that game. I forgot that was even there.
I'm stroking my chin. There's no beard.
Why are you stroking your chin?
I don't know. Thinking.
Thinking about Bravely Default. Everyone should be thinking about Bravely Default.
Bravely Default.
Oh, what game were you thinking?
I'm thinking of the phone.
Oh, you mean Brave Frontier.
Brave Frontier. You know what it was? We were talking about Bravely Default before. That's
yes. Well, Bravely Default, you were able to spend money in.
I know you could. There was a little microtransaction.
Yeah, but they were hidden behind like 40 menus. Like you couldn't even find them if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Brave Frontier, I spent maybe like $5 in.
Oh, I spent like $100. I did it. I'll admit it. I'm ashamed.
You're still not whale status. Like there are people playing Monster Strike who spent like thousands of dollars on those games.
I can't imagine doing that because you literally are paying to have an experience that. It's terrible.
Well, another game I have been playing is actually Final Fantasy Record Keeper, and I've probably put about $30 into that game overall. And I don't feel the real need to. I think it's a lot more of an honest game than Brave Frontier is. And Brave Frontier isn't even bad in terms of the honesty. Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely not some sort of like Candy Crush mafia ring.
Oh. Well, you mean like All the Bravest?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, All the Bravest was definitely a huge mistake, but you could tell that Square Enix learned from their mistake. And they had that company DNA, who seems to make actually pretty good mobile games. Like, they make that Transformers one.
Aren't they the ones who are responsible for bringing Nintendo into the mobile gaming?
Yes, they're Nintendo's mobile partner.
So that could be good, considering we've seen decent games come from them already.
Yeah, no, they make fair phone games. Like, they want you to spend money, but they don't pump you for it. I mean, it's not as fair as, say, something like Crossy Road, where you literally don't have to spend money and you get tons of new characters anyway, but... You know, it's more fair than what we've seen in the past.
Can we use that to seg into E3? Because you bring it up, Nintendo mobile partner.
That's where we're going. Yeah. We're going to Nintendo first. I was going to say because we need to start with arguably the worst of the big three from E3.
Well, I was going to say the worst was that PC show.
Oh,
that PC show. They're saving stuff for the other summer event. What is it? TGS coming up?
Yeah. TGS.
So let's not judge them. Let's not judge them too harshly. E3 has always been the arena for kind of the big console.
Also, they have their own direct, so they get to say whatever they want whenever they control their own press cycles. Kind of cool for them.
As a big Nintendo fan, they have these issues in that they did the Nintendo World Championships. They revealed their new Smash Brothers characters, which are phenomenal. I own them; they're great.
It's pretty nice that you get to have them right away too. I like that.
They didn't sit around and say, "Guess what? You guys are going to get these characters in 3 months." They gave them to us. They said, "Here, go get them, enjoy them."
Lucas and Roy.
Lucas, Roy, Ryu.
Oh yeah, Ryu from Street Fighter.
And you got a couple of maps, and not that you necessarily needed the maps, but Dreamland 64 is a personal favorite, so
that was a big...
Dreamland, based off the Kirby series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
From the original
Smash Brothers on the N64.
So, like we were saying, they have issues sometimes with their content because they're saying, hey, guess what? We have all this great stuff, but they split it up, so you think, hey, it's not a part of the conference.
I feel like the whole thing was null and void in the beginning because the first words out of Reggie's mouth was, yeah, next year we're going to announce new hardware, but, look at these measly offerings that we have.
Well, we already knew that they weren't talking about the NX at the C3. They told us that a while ago. Mm. They went into that a while ago, and they also told us that they weren't talking about any of their mobile games. So, really, that's funny they used the segue for DNA, but they didn't talk jack crap about, their mobile offerings that are coming. I did think they did say, though, like, next year they'll be up to, 5 games, but that wasn't even at E3. Otherwise, no, Nintendo didn't really have a bad offering. It was definitely a show in flux for them. They're showing a lot of smaller titles, but none of them were particularly offensive. I mean, if you like Animal Crossing, that house game seems entertaining. If you like Yoshi for whatever reason, that Woolly World game looks adorable, complete with
definitely
odd yarn amiibos.
Well, let's do this.
Creepy.
Let's go around and see which title tickled each of our respective interests. Okay. Let's start with Paul.
From the Nintendo conference?
Yeah, let's just start with Paul and see what he enjoyed the most.
I'm going to go real boring and say Star Fox. I mean, as a $60 release title, it seems a bit much. But, I mean, I'm a big Star Fox fan since the first one on Super Nintendo. And for me, this looks really good. It looks more of a return to form. Obviously, it's not something they're not stepping on a Rareware video game this time. They're making their own in-house. It's really nice. There's some other good stuff, but nothing really knocked my socks off. But I was really excited to see some Star Fox, and we had it, so I was happy with that much.
How do you feel about the Star Fox returning to what Star Fox 2 promised?
I'm happy about that. I mean, we had Command Mission, which was very much like what Star Fox 2 on the Super Nintendo was going to be like. I hope that they make it a little more forgiving with the timers, where you have to keep running back and replaying the same levels over and over again. Mm-hmm. But this, I think, is going to be a lot more accessible. I was a little iffy on the cockpit view, where you could look in and kind of aim. And I could see where that has utility. I just hope they don't force it down your throat, because I was watching the Treehouse guys play it, and the Treehouse guys were stumbling all over it. They were crashing the R-Wing and everything, they couldn't get a handle on it.
Well, I heard that you could disable it from a more recent interview with Miyamoto.
I feel like it should be there. I feel like it should just be there, and if you want to use it, you press a button and now you're there, and you press the button back and you're back. But it shouldn't be...
My question is, do you think that you should be able to play the game with just, say, a Pro Controller? Should you be able to get rid of the tablet controller entirely?
Yes, of course. Yes. I definitely.
And then play it more like a standard Star Fox game at that point?
Of course. I mean, that's really what I wanted to do in the first place, so yeah.
So, now, do you want it to be as much of an arcadey experience as, say, Star Fox 64 was? Where it's meant to be played over and over again with something like branching paths?
That would be... I think that's kind of the winning formula for Star Fox. I mean, even Star Fox on Super Nintendo had branching paths. It wasn't nearly as
linear as
it wasn't as fleshed out as Star Fox 64 was.
Well, Star Fox 64 was also kind of easy, and I think it was just kind of made to be played repetitively.
Well, it was made to get a certain goal, a certain high score in order to unlock everything, which is great for people who love to master a game. And that game was a lot of fun, so it worked in that formula. Otherwise, it shouldn't be forced on the players. But I like that doing different things in the level would get you to a branching path, and it wasn't just you're picking it was actually doing something cool.
Yeah,
and
secondary
rewarding
goals.
the player for exploring.
Something they would use in New Super Mario Brothers with the mini mushrooms. Alright, so my Nintendo game of the thing that really tickled me.
Tickled you.
Tickled me.
That's the word.
Mario Maker, Super Mario Maker.
Oh, definitely.
It's probably one of the best games of the show. I mean, I was one of those kids who in first grade, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, was sitting there with graph paper drawing my own Mario levels.
Perfect.
So that game is the culmination of everything I did as a kid. So, and the fact that my worst fear has been allayed with that, where it was confirmed that the aesthetic comes with different physics. Mm-hmm. Mario 1 physics are intact, Mario 3 physics are intact, Mario World physics are intact. So that's going to be interesting because it's going to make certain stages feel completely different based on how and whatever feel you want from a game as you're making the level, it can be there. And then also other fears were relayed when I found out that to be able to upload a stage to the internet, the creator has to be able to beat it.
So that was a good one.
You can't put unbeatable stages on. And then also, you retain authorship of your work. Say you make a stage, someone downloads it and modifies it, they cannot upload that to the internet. Like, they can't steal your work and then just put the cherry on top and call it a day.
You've just informed me of things I didn't even know, and I watched all of E3. I watched Nintendo World Championships, which, by the way, that they showed excellent use of the Mario Maker.
Yes.
The levels they showed were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of that stuff I just said might have been post E3 because people obviously had those sorts of questions. Because, Nintendo has a spotty history at best when it comes to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So for something as internet needed as Mario Maker, because you see how Little Big Planet handled their stuff, and anything less would just be a travesty and a waste of the property that they were making. So it was key that Nintendo found a good way of doing it. It seems like they did. They hit all the right notes with it. And what about you, Steve? What did you like from Nintendo's E3?
Mario and Luigi, the new Paper Jam game. I am a huge Mario and Luigi, Paper Mario, Super Mario RPG fan. It hits all the right spots.
I just can't help but wonder if they named it in the office after all the printers broke.
Yeah. I got a real Office Space moment when I heard the name.
They're
PC
giving
load letter. What the fuck does that mean?
They're just giving you another Mario and Luigi game with some extra features. You got another way to attack. You can kind of, I don't know if he clones himself and has more copies of Paper Mario there to do extra attacks. It looks like. But
I didn't get to that.
But the gameplay itself looks great. The boss battles look great. It's basically what you'd expect from a Paper Mario RPG, Mario and Luigi RPG. So
now, the only Mario and Luigi game I ever played was the newest one.
The one where he's sleeping?
Yes.
That one, okay.
It was not good. I got about 20 hours in, and I said to myself, this game needs to be done now.
Was it Bowser's Inside Story? Was that
No. It's a Mario and Luigi Dream Team.
Dream Team, yeah, that one didn't do so well.
That's the only one I've ever played, so I heard Bowser's Inside Story, though, is amazing. So if it's more like that, then it looks good. But I don't know. I've never even been a big Paper Mario fan either.
Did you watch the Treehouse Live?
No.
They played through one level, and they fought one boss. And it was really, really cool the way that they were able to use... Mario could basically get more copies of himself and then do an attack. And during the attack, if he had 8 copies of himself, he would hit the guy 8 times for 2 damage each or 1 damage each, whatever it was.
Okay.
So it was a cool mechanic that if he got hit, he'd lose half of his copies. Or if he did a certain attack, he would lose a bunch of his copies. So he would be like a new gameplay mechanic as well as a character.
Well, it's kind of reminiscent of Luigi and how he had all of his copies for some of the mechanics in Dream Team.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be an exciting title, and it comes out pretty soon. I think it's early 2016, so that's...
Aren't these games made by Intelligent Systems?
This one might be by Alpha Dream? I can't remember which company, but Intelligent Systems was Paper Mario, I think.
Yeah, the Fire Emblem people.
Yeah, and Alpha Dream. Don't quote me, but I think they did the Mario and Luigi series.
Oh god, those were other games too. Nintendo did have a better offering than most people would say. Really, people said it was trash, crap, underperforming. You had Fire Emblem Fates. You had that Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, whatever the hell that thing is called, that doesn't look like either game, but I'm going to buy it anyway. They had those.
The Zelda 3-player game.
Oh yeah, that
Triforce Heroes.
That's the most disappointing thing is you can play 1-player, you can play 3-player, you cannot play 2-player.
Yeah, they weren't thinking that part out. I don't think.
Awkward.
It is awkward, and I just like how they addressed though when they were announcing it, the lack of 4 people. Because inevitably people are like, what about 4 swords? They're like, 4 creates too big of a totem.
Yeah, right. That's an oddly specific... It's not hardware restrictions or anything, is it, guys? Or you couldn't think of levels?
Nintendo has a lot of aesthetic sense when it comes to their games.
Yeah.
It's how they got away with the Wii not being an HD system. Because normally their art direction is so strong that HD almost doesn't matter for them.
Very true.
That's kind of the reason why the Wii U is able to get away with what it's able to get away with. It's definitely has less power, but it still can do the job.
And it can play Batman Arkham City with electric gauntlets.
Before we move on from Nintendo, I just want to address the pink elephant in the room, which was Federation Force, I think it was, or Metroid Federation farce, as I call it.
I was kind of hoping we weren't even going to touch on it.
You have to just say.
Honestly, I'm not a Metroid person, so when I saw a Change.org issue over this game, I kind of laughed because who gives a crap?
All right.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Let's start with one thing. Out of the three of us, who here actually played the Metroid game on the DS when it first came out? The
Metroid
3D
Prime Hunters?
I did.
You played? Did you beat Metroid Prime
No.
Hunters?
I played it for like 10 minutes.
I just
Here's my
played
thing.
the multiplayer demo.
I'm going to assume that all three of us had the Metroid First Hunt little game that was just included with the DS when it first came out.
That's,
Right?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking
So we all played through it. What did you guys think of that before we even get going on this game?
I think it was at the time, it was a very competent port of the gameplay style from Metroid Prime. But I mean, obviously, I feel like it was more a proof of concept than anything else. Didn't feel very fleshed out.
They had to show you that this touchscreen is not the worst idea in the world.
Okay.
And they succeeded in doing that.
Now touching on that, we've got Federation Force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got lock-on nonsense. You've
Blast
got,
ball.
Yes,
Sorry, go.
exactly. You've got the lock-on. You've got the analog stick, and if you have a new 3DS, you have the nub, right?
I love the nub.
Now
You like
the nub,
to rub the nub.
Oh, I always rub
exactly, and the nub is great. It serves its purpose. It gives us sort of a secondary stick. It's better in Smash Brothers than anything else, as far as I can tell so far. But the nub is not giving us a second analog stick as much as they like to tell us that they are. So it kind of enters that same realm with Federation Force. We don't have a Samus. We don't have a second stick. Why are they doing this to us?
Yeah. It could have been a not Metroid game and wouldn't have been a stink, obviously. But I think the thing is that the spirit of Metroid games were like exploration and like that sense of I'm in a creepy place on an alien planet and I'm trying to survive. None of that's there from what I gathered.
Yeah, but we have Axiom Verge for that.
Yes.
Yeah, let's...
we have thank you Thomas Happ for giving us the Metroid that everyone wanted,
right?
And Nintendo for giving us Blast Ball.
All right. So now that we've stepped on that pink elephant that we didn't want to touch, let's go on to Sony.
So, you mean fan fiction the conference?
Fan fiction the All right, I like it. It's an appropriate subtitle considering
they
Final
started
Fantasy,
with The Last Guardian.
Final Fantasy, Shenmue, and The Last Guardian in one conference.
They started with The Last Guardian. Like that alone, like this game was getting to Duke Nukem levels of what the hell is this ever coming out? I don't think this is ever coming out. I don't care anymore, but if I see the trailer, I'm then going to have to look for internet reactions of people crying, and that's exactly what happened.
It's that bit of fame that you don't want, because it was about to be that game that was supposed to come out on the PS3, and then now all of a sudden we got to port it to PS4. It became a very Twilight Princess, GameCube Wii situation, where they knew, they weren't going to get the right people.
You mean the game that when they ported it to the Wii, they made Link a righty?
Well, I mean, that made sense to me. The explanation that most of the Earth's population is right-handed. Like, I am left-handed, so it doesn't really matter because I would have rather played that on the GameCube anyway, but even though they only printed, 5 copies for that? But, but back to The Last Guardian, like, yes, it was getting to that vaporware status. It was starting to look like Prey 2. Mm-hmm. But, they brought it out, and it looks like a late-era PS3 game, which is fine, though, because also I think the Eco team is like 4 or 5 people, including their director, who I just think he lives in the office. So they're able to do a lot with a little, and the game looks still great because, again, strong art direction.
Yeah.
And that dog griffin thing has so many little ticks to it, even in that small vertical slice. It's really impressive looking.
Yeah. Yeah, the animation is very lifelike. And, I very recently, went through and played the older games from that company. I played Ico, or Eco, however it's pronounced, and Shadow Colossus, which I still want to call Wanda in the Colossus because that was a working title. So that stuck, but the actual game name doesn't.
Wanda and the Colossus, officially called Wanda.
Yeah, Eco was great. It was a fantastic experience, if not feeling its age. But keep in mind, I just played it 3-4 months ago.
Did you play it on the PS3?
The remaster, though.
Yeah, the remaster.
Okay, so you played the HD.
I mean, I had a friend of mine had it on PS2 and he played it and he loved it, and I just couldn't get into it back then. But this time around, I loved it. Then I went and I played Shadow of the Colossus, which is a game and this is going to be very. We're going to get our first hate mail, guys.
That's perfect.
I wasn't a fan of it. I think the core mechanic of it. Now, keep in mind, if I had played it on PS2, I guarantee you I'd be head over heels just like everybody else.
Yes, people love that 8 frames per second gameplay.
It's not the frame. It's not the frame rate that got me. It's the core game mechanic, which is based around waiting and holding a single button down. And it was very frustrating because it's like, all right, exploring, finding them, awesome. The puzzle solving aspect of it, awesome. I get to the part of the game where I actually have to fight a Colossus. It's get onto the Colossus, wait for him to expose his weak spot, right? First wait.
Yes.
Hit it. Wait for him to fall over. Grab onto his fur. Wait for him to stop moving so I can move. Find a safe spot and wait for my stamina bar to recharge. Wait for him to stop moving again. Get to his weak spot on his head or wherever it was. So wait for my charge bar to charge, stab attack, wait for him to stop charging, and then the whole thing was just waiting, and it felt very tedious. And it felt like, as a player, it had very little effect on what was going to happen next. It was just waiting.
Wasn't that game all about scale, though? Like, did it feel big like it was supposed to?
It definitely did, but the mechanics of it, the sheer mechanics of gameplay.
Well, it seemed very mundane. Like, you were not some sort of superhero about all this. You were definitely...
No, you're right. It is to the direction of the game, obviously. And like I said, we're going to get a lot of angry people at me, but...
No, I think a lot... That game did not sell well. It's not... It's a critical darling, but it's not exactly a sacred cow.
Where it came from on the PS2 and what it did was fantastic as far as world design, art direction, like the aesthetics, the little itty bitty details. But the core gameplay mechanic, while it did evoke an emotional response in killing these beasts that were like otherwise defenseless. You're hunting them down, but the actual gameplay mechanic of it, I thought, was kind of boring and frustrating as it got on in the game, and I couldn't bring myself to finish it.
What we've seen from The Last Guardian, though, so far, do you have the same concern? It's from the same studio.
It looks just like Ico. If you replace that daft little girl with a giant daft dog luck dragon from, let's just call it what it is. It's Falcor.
Of course it's Falcor. It's not even a comparison.
It's the same mechanic where a young boy goes to an obstacle where he can't proceed any further, and then he shouts in gibberish.
Yeah, bye!
He shouts in gibberish, waits for his dopey companion to show up, and then they get past that particular gap. And that is fine because I loved Eco and it worked great. So I imagine it's going to be much the same.
So who do you think dies at the end of the game, the boy or the dog?
Both together in an embrace, falling down into a pit.
Little do you know, it's actually co-marketing with Terminator Genesis, and just the robots come in.
They're doing Neverending Story 3, and that's
never-ending.
The 10th Doctor is going to show up halfway through and just take care of everything.
How'd you read my fanfic?
So would you say what would you guys say is your favorite part of Sony? We talked about Last Guardian. I mean, we know
it wasn't my favorite. Well, Last Guardian was not my favorite because I haven't played Eco or Shadow of the Colossus. I have them both, the collection, so that wasn't my thing. Sony, that new IP Horizon.
It was one of the only actual games that were theirs that they showed.
Horizon Zero Hour? Is that the title?
Yeah, well, I'm just excited because it's made by the Killzone people, and it's not Killzone.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're taking their impressive tech and applying it towards not space Nazis, which is really nice. So
you'd say right now that's the most exciting title from you, aside from probably Final Fantasy VII, right?
Well, Final Fantasy VII, we just know nothing about it yet. Like, because I keep on reading different things, seeing different things. Oh, like nothing's sacred. We could change everything. So basically, to me, until I know that the battle system is the same, because I already have Final Fantasy 15 coming. I don't need to play Final Fantasy 7 with Final Fantasy 15's battle system. Mm-hmm. But until I know that they're not messing around with that battle system, I'm still skeptical. So whereas with Horizon, we saw actual gameplay, and it looks great. It's that post-apocalypse, which we're starting to see more of. You know, humans sort of getting back on their feet after the apocalypse happens. It's not The Last of Us where you still see buildings. It's humanity is now rebuilt, and it's weird. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We see giant robot dinosaurs, And we see a Monster Hunter-esque way of taking them down, where they have weak points, but then they have like a bunch of weak points, and one had like a missile launcher on his shoulders, which you could then use like it's a turret. It's all very interesting, and just to get into the slightly political part of it, the fact that it is a new IP with a female protagonist is actually refreshing to see. It's not some gravelly voiced dude with a gun.
They said that they struggled. I read an interview. They said they struggled with the decision.
I saw that too.
Yeah. Why do they feel that's risky?
Shuei Yoshida talked about that.
Yeah, I really don't think it's that risky to have a female main character. I mean,
focus testing. That's the problem. Big companies focus test everything into the ground. And focus tests show, newer studies with younger people are showing that they don't care as much, but people our age and probably slightly older have been brought up with a certain level of expected things like masculinity and stuff like that, which probably lends itself to maybe a more negative perception of female protagonists in games.
Well, we're segueing into kind of today's
it's unavoidable. It's the environment. Nothing happens in a vacuum. It's the environment we're in. Like, I'll say that I want to say like a 50-50 split. If I get opportunity to create a character or choose male or female, a lot of times I'll pick a female character. For be it Dark Souls or maybe an MMO and
Mass Effect.
Mass Effect. Actually, I never did because I always role-played myself in Mass Effect. That's a conversation for another time, maybe.
I regret not playing FemShep because her voice is so much better.
Oh, yeah. She was cool. Sorry.
No,
it's just I keep interrupting Steve.
I played both. I played through Mass Effect 1 with male and female, and both voice actors did a phenomenal job. I enjoyed every single aspect of Mass Effect playing as both of them. So you can't take anything
Mark
away.
Mark Meir was the male, and Jennifer Hale?
Jennifer Hale from Metal Gear Solid fame.
Well, she does a bunch of stuff. She's pretty famous, actually, in terms of that whole voice acting.
Oh, since then. Because that's interesting, and again, in a whole other conversation, but voice acting back in the early PlayStation days, was people used a lot of pseudonyms, because it was like they didn't want to get blacklisted if they were actors or have that kind of mark on them.
Well, you run into guild problems. I think that was really the concern, was the fact that video game voice acting, I don't think they consulted like Screen Actors Guilds or anything. So I think that was the issue. So they had to try to avoid. As a matter of fact, you saw it earlier this year.
Scabbing, basically.
Yeah, well, some music guild ran into it this year, where composer, I think for Journey, got into trouble with his guild because he did it.
And just wasn't able to. He had too many contracts, or what is the?
I don't know the rules. Like, these guilds are so old and arcane that like their rules, they're literally books. So I have no idea what's going on.
It's Austin Wintory. That's his name. I actually bought the Journey soundtrack. I love that game so much.
That was a fun game.
Yeah,
E3
from
Journey.
My favorite thing from the Sony conference, aside from Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I'm a huge FF7 is.
Oh, I lost my noodles when I.
Yeah.
That sounded like I said I threw up. I didn't throw up. I just got really loud.
Lost my noodles.
Final Fantasy VII is the shit. I mean, it forever will be. I've beaten the game 22 times. I'm not 30. I'm not 30, and I've beaten this game 22 times. Some people I know have 150 hours and haven't beaten it once.
I've beaten it twice, and for me, that's a huge thing.
Probably in one file, I'd probably easily put in 250 hours in one of my files, but the clock stops at 99 hours, 59 minutes. Yeah. So I really have no idea. I was kind of ballparking it.
Yeah, of course.
We'll never know.
That was a glorious part about Final Fantasy X. They extended that clock, so I saw when I got to 250 hours. So
let's touch on the big meatball that's hanging out there for Sony, for Shenmue.
I think I'll buy another.
Is it for Sony though, or did Sony just go, here, we'll give you a bunch of money if you let us have you for E3?
No, it wasn't.
I feel like he did that for FF7.
Well, FF7 is because of the relationship of Final Fantasy was ushered into the 3D age because of Sony.
It was on the PlayStation 1.
There's definitely a legacy, and that definitely is part of Japanese business culture, from what I understand.
Yeah, no, relationships and legacy and memories, like, those matter a lot more than they do here.
But it's also, let's not ignore the fact that just the console market in Japan is tanking.
Well, I think that's why I think that's why Square finally decided to do it in the first place, because the famous quotes you saw all over when we will not make an FF7 remake until we have surpassed FF7.
Right.
Maybe they feel like they've done that with 15. The demo suggests that there's a good game there, so maybe. But also, consoles in Japan have dried up because the phone market has just eclipsed everything. So maybe they feel like, hey, maybe if we bring FF7, this game that sold a bajillion copies, like they sold basically 2 copies of the game for every one person in Japan, which is weird. So maybe they think they can crack that magic again. I mean, FF7 on the PS1 classics is still selling well. It is still up there.
Didn't they just release it on the PS4 store? Or were they just saying...
They're still doing it, that crappy PC port that no one wants, with its compressed MIDI music that you need to mod to make the music sound right.
Ugh.
It's terrible. I bought it on the PC before it came to Steam.
It's almost like they don't have computers in Japan.
Well, all right, here's an interesting thought that I realized the other day with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's probably 5 years away, right? Possibly more?
No. I think it's farther along. They said it was already in development before they announced the crappy PC port was coming, and I think they were going to rush it, possibly to its detriment, but I think also, when you think about it, when you have like stuff like script, the script obviously needs to be redone because the script was not great, but you have stuff already there. Also, 2017 is the 20th anniversary of the game coming out. So I think that there's a chance that game is coming out in 2017.
Oh, that sounds ambitious.
Here is my problem with that. I think 5 years is being extremely generous to remake that world with the there was so much detail in Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1. Just in the environments alone, for them to do right by that game, the legacy, to get the voice actors just right, to get everything done properly, it's going to take way more than 5 years, and that leads me into my point that they might launch it for PS5.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't even know if there will be a PS5.
That'll be 6 years.
I think the opposite is probably more likely, where they don't give it all the love and TLC that it deserves, and they kind of just push a product out that they know will sell anyway because it's got the name on it, and not necessarily have to do the full reworking that we really hope for as fans.
Also, my 2017 argument, the biggest time sink into any game is art assets. Final Fantasy VII has a ton of outside art assets. You know what else has a ton of art assets that are set outside? Final Fantasy 15.
That was something I was also thinking they were going to kind of take some of that.
They can crib a lot of art assets, set some speed tree on that.
Yeah.
And because even if they go with the overworld concept, they could make it more like a Final Fantasy X also, and make everything connect together more organically. Because, I mean, yes, you say there's a lot of detail. It's not so much. Like it's pre-rendered backgrounds. In places like Midgar, there's a lot going on, but they're just drawings. Whereas nowadays, there's middleware programs where you can put clutter like that pretty much anywhere. You can make your own room in about 6 seconds.
I think about Advent Children, right? And yeah, of course, like it's a movie. It's not a video game. It's a completely different form of media. But just there was detail in that game, in that movie, that was phenomenal. It looked great. I thought it was actually a pretty good follow-up. What do you guys think the odds are that they're going to make a Final Fantasy VII Part 2 that kind of follows after Dirge of Cerberus and Advent Children?
I think they're going to come out with Final Fantasy VII and call it a day, unless it sells extremely well. Then you might see I would see more upscales of existing stuff. Maybe another Dirge of Cerberus try, maybe fix the shooting a little bit because that game was terrible. Maybe try to up-res Crisis Core in the same way that they did Type 0. Because Crisis Core was actually a phenomenal game.
It was. And
it was actually directed by the person who's now directing Final Fantasy 15, because they took off Nomura from 15 to concentrate on Kingdom Hearts 3, which, fine, go do that. I don't care about that game anyway.
Well, that's another thing, is that the Kingdom Hearts series, they have all of these, we've got 3 main titles that are console-based, and they've got way more titles that are all based on handheld stuff. Yeah. Can the same thing happen again for Final Fantasy?
I think that has already been going on. I mean, we have Record Keeper, we have Some Final Fantasy remakes already on the App Store. We're probably going to...
Those are terrible.
Yeah, well, not in defense of them, but just as a precedent, they're there. Obviously, the mobile market is where Japan is heading. So, definitely, the Final Fantasy franchise isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It just might not be what we want, what we grew up with.
Well, I think it will, because Nomura also said recently in an interview that he wants to remake pre-FF7 Final Fantasies. He specifically said he wants to do a new version of Final Fantasy VI, and not just a port like what you saw in the GBA, or a horrible RPG Maker looking game like you see on mobile phones.
So what you're saying is we're going to get Final Fantasy VI the after years.
No, he wants to remake it. Not
I know.
make a sequel.
I'm just poking fun at.
He doesn't want Diesel or whatever the hell.
Hey, Final Fantasy
was.
IV: The After Years was a very good game. The story was just craptastic. Okay.
Well, of course it was very good. It was Final Fantasy IV.
Yes.
Well, and I was going to say, in terms of remakes, we already saw a good remake with Final Fantasy IV on the DS. Hard as hell, but it was a good remake.
The game itself, of course, it's going to play the same, but the art direction on the DS was terrible because nothing can replace beautiful sprites. Nothing can replace sprites.
You know what I would love to see, and I think this is so unique to a Final Fantasy genre, specifically to a Square Enix. And I can't, the name of the artist escapes me. The artist that did all the very famous cover art
for God.
and the concept
Amano.
art. Amano, yeah. If they could somehow, through the magic of science, come out with a game where the art direction is based on Amano's work and just put it in motion, how amazing would that be? And it could work on mobile too, because it would just be basically 2D assets in motion, and you just need a simple battle system that would work on a touchscreen.
Hey, did you see that Platinum Transformers game coming out? It looks like the cartoon from the 80s. So
it looks like the cartoon from the 80s built on top of the Legend of Korra game engine.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though? They can imitate the look of that. They may be able to do something like what you just said.
Well, let's try to get back to Shenmue, because we've left Shenmue twice. Back to Final Fantasy.
You said Shenmue, and then we talked about Final Fantasy.
I'm looking for sailors.
What can you tell me about the three blades?
Did anybody here play Shenmue 1 and 2? That's my first question.
I played through 1.
Played them, yes.
I started through 2. I didn't finish 2. I still have my disc sitting somewhere for the original Xbox. However, I don't have that monolith system to play the game on. And I don't think they ever added it to the 360 backwards compatibility. Barbie's Horse Adventures was there, of course, but no Shenmue 2.
Dude, Barbie's Horse Adventures was phenomenal.
Best game ever.
Superb.
Yeah. I at some point in Shenmue, they asked me to drive a forklift and have a full-time job. Yeah. I said, I already have a full-time job. That's a lie. I wasn't old enough to have a full-time job when Shenmue came out. But I didn't want to do it. It was like, I got what they were going with, and I know some people just, it blew their minds. And it was very groundbreaking game design.
Oh, it blew my mind.
But, again, it comes down to, for me, it always comes down to gameplay mechanics and the feel and like how I interact with the game. And Shenmue was basically, it was a fighting game at some point, but it wasn't even as good as Tekken. And I'm not a big Tekken guy.
It was built off the fighting engine for Virtua Fighter. Because Yu Suzuki also created Virtua Fighter?
Yeah. Well, no one's trying to undercut Yu Suzuki's contributions to video games, especially in the arcade market.
No, he created it, right? He didn't just work on it?
I think he was the lead on that.
Again, I think so.
The professionalism amongst the three of us is astounding for our research. What was I getting at?
Gameplay mechanics.
Gameplay mechanics. Oh yeah, and it was the other one was like Dragon's Lair for the other half of the game. When you weren't around talking to people about sailors and menaces.
Like you said, it's groundbreaking because you have your apartment, you have your job, you can go and collect things from these collectible capsule machines that they have in Japan.
Right.
It's
great.
It's a very unique experience, but for the three of us, it wasn't a huge thing that we decided to spend thousands of hours on. My brother...
It was pretty big for me.
You actually went through one, you said part of two.
Part of 2, that was just a matter of not having an Xbox for long enough.
Okay.
Like, I bought the game, but then I got rid of the system for some... Or I think it broke, because I bought it from someone on a GameStop floor, despite the fact that that's against their store rules.
Okay.
No, the first Shenmue was perfect for me because while you say, Paul, that you're all about the mechanics, that game to me is all about the idea of immersion. Admittedly, I'm a pretty big Japanophile. I used to be pretty big into anime. I play a lot of their I still prefer Japanese games even when they suck over Western games. Like I would probably rather play a crappy Japanese RPG than play something like Oblivion. So for that sense of immersion you get into mid-'80s sort of suburban Japan, it was a perfect look mixed with just the right amount of pseudo-mystical bullcrap. Like, my dad is dead, I have to go find this man Landy, can you tell me how to find some sailors? Great. Forklift, fight, guy looks like Choi from the King of Fighters games at the end, get on a boat, game ends, great.
See, my issue was this. My brother had the Dreamcast because it was a super expensive system at the time.
Yeah.
I was too young to really afford it. I was just happy that there was a damn PlayStation 1 in the house, you know? I was happy that was there and I had stuff to play and I had a Nintendo and a Genesis and that. And he played it. He liked it. He kept on. He would rant and rave and say, this game's phenomenal. I can't believe you don't want to play this. And I just, I watched him and it looked like a game that I just had no interest in whatsoever. But I understand the appeal to certain people. Like you said, the immersion, it makes perfect sense. And I know why there's people, and I know why that game got funded immediately. Because there are people who dug that. That's their thing.
It was just so unfortunately expensive back when it was made. Like, this is before video game budgets blew up to what they are now. I mean, you hear reports of Destiny being over $1 billion, despite the fact that Witcher 3 was made for only $15 million, which is just...
Was it?
$15 million. Yes.
That just blew my mind.
Well, Destiny, they said it's a
marketing
10-year plan. 10-year plan. $500 million was what they said they were going to spend.
So the real plan is in 10 years we will have a complete game.
That's
because the first year I've seen that game. It's so sparse.
We're getting way off topic. Let's move on to Xbox.
It's our first time. I actually didn't watch the Xbox conference, so I'm going to go ahead and say my favorite was Rise of the Tomb Raider.
All right. You are informed. That was phenomenal.
That was
good. Really.
I liked the first one. Oh, I'm sorry. See, I'm stepping all over.
No, I'm asking. You want?
No.
You want? You take?
No, go.
All right. Recore. Oh my God. Okay.
Oh, is this another game with like robot animals?
Recore. All right. Yeah, that's kind of. Here's the thing. Keiji Inafune, right? Armature Studios. You literally have Metroid Prime and Mega Man making a baby, man. I will adopt the shit out of that baby.
Sweet Mega Love.
You've got another female protagonist.
Okay.
You've got a little dog that's made of a little blue core, obviously meant to represent good guy. And in the trailer, the dog protects her, blows itself up to kill all the little baddies that have red cores. And then she takes the core, puts it inside of a bigger machine, and the bigger machine is now her new buddy.
Oh.
It looks really good, but that's also just a video. That's all it is. It's just a little CG. It's not.
So it wasn't like gameplay like say Horizon did on the Sony.
Yeah, but it looks exciting. I like everyone who has a hand in it. It's an Xbox exclusive. It's Keiji Inafune's new company, Concept, which they're wrapping. I think they're wrapping like right now on Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, that comes out in September. I want to say, and then they're also his secondary company, because Concept I think is more the marketing thing, because then he also has Any Creates. Any Creates is a company that they've just used for a lot of the 2D game development. Well, they're helping on with that for Bloodstained. Yeah, they're using them as well.
And Armature. Armature's actually building a Unreal Engine 4 architecture for the Wii U. That's awesome. They're going to make that public after they're done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal. No, I heard about that actually, because I remember when the Wii U first came out, there was like concerns about Unreal 3 on it. Talk more about Microsoft, because again, I missed this. I was at work.
I watched. I got like the second half of Microsoft. Backwards compatibility was a nice thing that they said. It's limited, but the fact that they are making efforts, and they also said there was going to be a new UI at some point.
Well, because the Kinect doesn't matter anymore.
Well, that
UI is crap.
UI
if you're using voice commands.
Horrible. It's bad. It's laid out bad. I hope they redo the store. I do like the fact that they give you a visual representation of the games that you own that you haven't downloaded. That was a huge upgrade from how the 360 worked. Definitely a lot of room for improvement on on that GUI or UI, as you like to call it.
Backwards compatibility, though. Now, while that's great, and that they're announcing, they're trying to get games up and running, they're going to have 100 games in the fall or whatever, don't you think that it sounds like a great thing? It sounds like this great magnanimous gesture. However, it's publisher by publisher. They don't have to opt. They have to opt into it. They could say, no, we don't want this. In this era of where they're not even HD remasters, because the last gen, it was already HD. So these up-res games.
Right.
In this era where we're getting The Last of Us spoon-fed to us again, the first Gears of War spoon-fed to us again, the Master Chief Collection, Devil May DMC redone or whatever, do you think that the backwards compatibility is almost DOA, say in the way something like PlayStation Now is, because companies would much rather sell your game to you over again?
Here's the thing. They're not selling it to you. That's the best part. If you own the game on the 360, you take the disc, throw it in the system.
No, I know, but I'm saying, okay, say, I know Mass Effect 1 is one of the initial games that's on there,
Yeah.
but say EA is deciding to re-release the Mass Effect trilogy on new systems. So to that end, wouldn't it behoove them to not allow Mass Effect 2 or 3 onto the backwards compatibility in the first place?
Of course,
because they would much rather sell you the game again.
Of course, because GameStop will reap the benefits of selling those used discs, and they won't see any of that money. I understand what you're saying. It's just if they want to keep their series popular, they want to, there's a lot of different reasons why they may or may
those
not
HD
do it.
remakes are all selling incredibly well. Like,
Some.
Capcom basically said we are now in the business of HD remasters and Monster Hunter. So, and it's doing very well for them.
Take into account, Mass Effect 1 is one of those games that's on that list for the backwards compatibility.
But it's also the one that's sold by far the worst, and it's also easily the worst out of them.
Yeah,
Viva Pinata's on that list.
But if you
man.
think about it,
Well, I think Rare would just be happy to remind it that they exist.
well, actually, that was maybe the best part of the Microsoft conference was Rare going, hey, here's our 30 for 30, right? 30 of our games for $30. Some of those games, Battletoads, have a rewind feature to help you pass some of the tougher parts.
It's also an endless hoverbike stage on it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. Is now you can rewind that hoverbike stage and actually get through it.
There's an endless version of it.
Oh, there's an endless version of it.
Yeah, you could.
That's cool.
If you want to just see if you can somehow hoverbike for an hour and a half, you will be able to.
But that's cool that they're not just slapping their games on a disc and saying, here, buy it, which for $30 would be enough. They're actually giving some care to some of their games on their that they're putting on a disc, and they have a new IP coming out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Rare has been really shit for the last 10 years. There's no arguing that. But at some point, they were an actual good developer.
Oh yeah, well, they
in
made
the late
GoldenEye,
90s.
they made Perfect Dark. And it's great that Perfect Dark is coming to that collection. It's a shame GoldenEye isn't, but I get it that licenses are expensive and the James Bond license is actually worth something again, thanks to movies like Skyfall. So
I'm excited about the backwards compatibility. Just to throw it out there, it includes arcade games. I'm sitting here playing my Castlevania Harmony of Despair on my Xbox 360 and my PS3. I would really like to be able to do that and talk to my friends on my Xbox One with the party feature and do all these other things that I can do on that system.
Anything that they want to give us, the consumer, is a good thing. I was going to say, before I digressed, was Mass Effect 1, regardless of the critical or the consumer reception of Mass Effect 1, making it backwards compatible so you can go out and buy the game for $3 at GameStop and throw it in your system, because they're making Mass Effect 4.
yeah.
What better way to kind
Marketing.
of get some free...
No, it is a little
hype
marketing.
out there.
I'm just saying that maybe the timing is a little too late, and I get it that Xbox as a brand has had to pivot really hard from the Don Matrick always online, look at my weird hair days, to the Phil Spencer, the guy who now runs Xbox, who actually plays games and cares about the game portion. So I get that it's a hard pivot. It's just, I feel like if it's one of those things that Xbox worked hard on to get in the system when it launched, it would have been a lot better, because maybe it would have discouraged this whole HD up-res culture from springing up in the first place. So then publishers would have been more inclined to get their games onto the list. But now I just don't so much see it's a goodwill gesture for a company to do that, but I would say that the money to be made from even selling a more budget port of something, and say like $40 instead of like $60, it's making them more money. It probably behooves them to upres a little bit.
Okay. I don't know about you guys. I'm excited about Halo 5. And this is coming from somebody who I hated the beta. I thought the beta was absolute crap because they were implementing the thrusters. You could thrust to the side and shoot while fighting people. Mm-hmm. And the game felt more like Call of Duty Advanced Halo fare than anything else. And I just did not like it. But when they showed the Warzone game type for Halo, where it's 12 on 12 and then you have random elites running out and you got tanks and you got all this crazy crap going on, that got me re-excited all over again for Halo. That's all it took. Just a big friggin' slobber knocker. That's it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it's not something new exactly, which is
that's exactly what they need.
More and more rare nowadays.
Well, I'm not even a Halo player, but I mean, it's almost more expected to see something new because it's 343 doing it now. You know, granted they have now Halo 4 under their belt and, you know, the clusterfuck that was the Master Chief Collection. But this is like, Halo 4 felt more like a dry run that they did pretty well on. Master Chief was probably them more getting up to snuff with the new hardware, whereas Halo 5, if anything, is probably more their big coming out party, where they need to show what they're really made of, and by adding stuff like new modes and sort of changing up the gameplay a little bit, because I've seen the beta. I'm not a big Halo person, but I've seen people play it, and it seems a lot more modern shooter friendly as opposed to what it was.
There's this is an unpopular opinion. Halo 4 was, in my opinion, probably my favorite Halo game for multiplayer. It had balance. It had the ability to call in ordnance drops when you earned enough points. It had probably the most varied group of multiplayer modes that were fun, competitive, all around, and just good. The biggest problem that game had was that there was no ranked. There was no ranked move. It wasn't level 1 to 50. It was just play and have fun.
Oh, there was no persistence like Call of Duty?
No persistent ranking. In Halo 2, the best part of that game was you went online and you made, let's just say you had a friend from school and you said, hey, let's play some Halo 2 tonight. You add them to your friends list and you go, wow, that guy is a 35 and I'm just a 22, 23. I'm really not that good. I can learn from that guy. You don't have that in Halo 4. And fortunately, they just recently righted that in the Master Chief Collection. Now you can have a ranked mode for Halo 4, which is great, using an Xbox One controller, which is another great thing.
Yeah. They
did some things right. They're kind of righting the ship, I feel. But Halo 4 did have a really terrible campaign.
It was like reading I was going to insult books. I shouldn't do that.
Nope.
No. It was really boring. It was. Now Halo's infamous for long purple hallways filled with purple aliens, and like the art direction wasn't that bad, and the enemy design was cool enough. I mean, the whatever they call them now was replacement for the Covenant. Whatever, it was cool. It was interesting. I liked the new pew pew guns over the old pew pew guns. It was fun, but I'll even give it this. They tried, I think, more than some of the previous Halo installments to actually have more story. It just woven in there to get you more involved, but it couldn't have been any more contrived or samey or boring. And it was, I felt, the least compelling story mode. And everybody hates on 2 because it was a cliffhanger ending. But all you out there in internet land who want to hate on the ending for Halo 2, remember that you hate it because you were so into it, and it just cut the rug out from underneath you. That's why everybody hated it so much, because it actually made them feel something, and then it stopped short, which was brutal. And then Halo 3 was kind of a mess, but it was cool anyway.
But at least they got the finish, though. That was actually Shenmue's problem, was that it all ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Halo Reach's story was...
Halo Reach was cool.
Cinematic. The gameplay was great. You could play with your 4 friends.
I actually had read the book Fall of Reach.
Yep.
That's terrible.
Dude.
You know what, though? It was cool because Halo was on top.
It was the thing to like. Everybody liked it. Everyone played it. Even people who didn't like it were playing it. My brother played Halo. He doesn't play first-person shooters.
I don't play first-person shooters either, but I played through Reach.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
you
no.
just.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing
Yeah.
with you. I'm just saying that book was terrible. Fall of Reach.
All
Well,
right.
as books go, yeah. I'm sure.
So we're almost out of time. Let's just talk about the last two things from E3, which is indie titles and third party games. Anyone want to?
Cuphead. Indie titles, we're talking about Cuphead. Still Microsoft. But Cuphead looks so awesome. For anybody who grew up watching like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, old Merry Melodies, and
Oldie timey.
and even like it's really like a Steamboat Willie look to it, which I'm not going to pretend I was watching Steamboat Willie, but I have seen it obviously. But that old animation that was hand drawn, it was actually higher production. Those cartoons weren't geared for kids back then. They were for everybody. They were shown before, movies were, and it was actually a lot of those were in colors before the movies were in color. So it was like a spectacle back then. It was like the height of technology back then for cinema. So this art style, to see this art style recreated, is amazing. I mean, a lot of times you'll see something like this with cell shading and tries to ape anime or something more modern, which is mostly done on computers anyway now.
Yeah,
it kind of has that.
You see like DBZ and Naruto games like mimicking their anime.
Yeah,
styles.
and they have a great aesthetic, but it's very clean and sterile. Where this is like, it's got that gritty film feel to it, and the animations are just.
It looks like old film.
The gameplay itself looks like Gunstar Heroes, Contra. It just reminds you of those games you played when you were younger that were so great, that were hard and also fun at the same time. It's just that game to look out for, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good indie showing, but also I think E3 had its indiecade, but E3 is not really a great indie show to start with. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want like more indie love, you got to look to something like a PAX.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah. Well, the indie super booth at PAX is.
That's where I found out about Chroma Squad.
Yeah, I mean, I when I was fortunate enough to go to PAX, the first 3 years they had PAX East, I went, and some of those games I got to play on a show floor, and ended up being some of my favorite games to play at home. It's great. Some of them ended up being total crap, but when you're at a con and you're playing it, and you're in that that vibe, that zone. It's like so cool. Everything's so new and cool.
When you're feeling that crazed desperation of Phil Fish next to you with the tropic feds.
When you're I actually got to talk to the lead designer for what's that top down isometric the kid. It's narrated. Bastion.
Yeah,
Bastion was phenomenal.
You talked to Greg Casson.
Yes, and he was such a chill guy, and he was introducing me to the voice actor that did the voiceovers. And I mean,
I did that whole thing too. It was great.
You only get that kind of experience on the show floor, but while you're having that experience, every game seems like it's going to be the absolute tits. Everything seems like it's going to be awesome. I saw Alien.
Isolation?
No.
Colonial
Marines.
On the show floor, narrated by the director of the game. It looked phenomenal. All right? And it's partly because, very controlled. It was in a booth. This, that, and the other thing. But, like, it's that vibe you get when you're at a place like that, at a convention like that it's just
when they
everything
control the
feels exciting.
environment, you can't see anywhere that in the future a lawsuit is brewing over the game.
All right, third-party games that were at E3. Anybody have anything that really stuck out?
Well, I just gotta say what sticks out to me the most is third party in general. The company that won E3. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like that Platinum is making every game at E3 this year.
They have something for every system, and no one has anything negative to say.
They're making the new Nier game.
Yeah.
They're making that Transformers game.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think they're making 2 other games that were shown. They are cleaning up as some sort of weird third-party art house do-our game for us. And just the fact that new Nier is coming is pretty amazing. Saw that at the Square conference. I love Square Enix's conference because it felt like an E3 press conference from 6 years ago. Back before, it was all about, hey, we're live streaming this. We got to make this entertaining. It was the very standard, here's the game. Here's a producer to come talk about it. He doesn't speak a lick of English, so here's a translator with him. And it was very old school, very boring, but almost refreshing just because it was something we haven't seen in a while and how bland its sort of presentation was. He's actually amusing.
I think Ubisoft had some good stuff. Obviously, they have some bad stuff too.
I miss Mr. Caffeine.
But I think that they're bringing Tom Clancy back, and I'm saying that like he went somewhere.
Well, I mean, he did. He's dead.
He's dead. Well, Tom Clancy himself
not
writing books anymore.
Yeah.
But the Tom Clancy franchises that they did, Rainbow Six, I'm very on the fence about. I'll see when it comes out. I'm very scared for the Division at this point because they keep showing less and less at every show, and they're trying to say that like, look at these cool new features, but I'm scared it's going to end up being the next Destiny. And
it looks a lot like Destiny.
The thing about Rainbow Six
looks like it plays a lot like Destiny.
The thing about the Rainbow Six is it Siege or Patriots? What is it called?
Siege.
Look, the thing about that is Rainbow Six the games are good. We played Rainbow Six Vegas. We played Rainbow Six Vegas too.
I liked all of them.
They have a slower, more methodical approach to an FPS, which I know you like.
Yeah, I remember Raven Shield. That game was awesome.
And that's the thing. The game's very good. I feel kind of like I'd almost rather play like Operation Flashpoint though, if that means anything.
Well,
you know, it's
all in execution, right? So they have these cool concepts, and so far the only thing they've showed us is like destroying a house. But
hey, I like destroying houses.
Yeah,
I mean, watch Restaurant Impossible, like when he goes at the wall, like that seems like a lot of fun.
I think that its potential is there for a good game. I liked them most. I liked the whatchamacallit, the Rainbow Six games mostly for the cooperative feature, and I like the old school ones where you get to plan out your whole thing on a map before you even go into the level.
AKA drawing dicks on a map.
So
some people, yes.
Well, yeah, on the online ones, yeah, but anytime you give somebody the ability to draw, the dicks happen.
I mean,
but
look at that first level.
They have that 4-player co-op military shooter thing on lock. All right, they have Division. They showed the new Ghost Recon game, which looks really cool. It's a very open world take on it, which is cool. Kind of very Metal Gear 5 on that.
Metal Gear.
Ubisoft has some cool stuff.
When they
Dishonored 2,
that's Bethesda.
That's
Bethesda. Yeah.
And actually,
we didn't
winner of the show. Like
Bethesda wins.
We didn't touch on Fallout 4, but all we really should have to say to anybody who likes video games and is listening, it's Fallout 4.
Fallout 4 looks like it wants to be every game.
You only have to wait 3 months.
We barely even have to talk about it because by the time people listen to this, they'll already have the damn game.
Oh yeah.
Please, you say wait 3 months. I say wait more like 8 because Bethesda's games are glitch hells to start with, and everything they're adding to that game. If I load up that game and the first thing that my character does is not fall through the world, I'd be surprised.
Did you ever take a step forward in New Vegas and then your avatar's face is literally on the back of their head? Because I've had that happen. That shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. That's the thing, and Witcher has these problems too, and it's really those big, giant, open-world games where you can go anywhere. It's almost impossible to play test the whole thing. Well, so you have to make an allowance for that sort
Witcher 3 is also Eastern European developed, which has its own history of glitchy as hell.
Well, they're Polish, so...
Yeah, well, Eastern European, Russian, and Ukrainian games, they're the best.
Okay. Well, The Division, though, the one thing that really got me with The Division was that they said that you can go into a mission. You know, it's like an MMORPG type world where you can just walk around the city. And
the sales pitch is great.
It's like the instance portal. Okay. It's like, here's where the raid is.
So they're saying, look, there's an event. The players can go to this event, go in there together, try to get it done. And I thought to myself, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab Paul and I'm going to bring him over to this mission. And they said, you can shoot your buddy in the back and take all their shit. And I said, the first thing I'm going to do is shoot Paul in the back, take all of his shit, drive to his house, and just, like, wave at him. Just smile, you know?
That's a great way to never get your friends to play with you ever again.
That's why people won't play New Super Mario Brothers with me on the Wii.
I'm just trying to show you how much I love you, Paul. That's all.
I know.
But the game itself looks like fun.
Yeah,
it looks like a good time.
It looks like what we're going to do is go online, join 4 people squads, and then just kill 2 people and take all the loot for ourselves.
I think we're going to have to end it on that note then.
Okay, so...
End it on treachery, I like it.
Treachery's perfect.
This is our first attempt at a podcast. If you like it, tell us. If you don't, maybe keep that to yourself. I'm really easily hurt. I've been hurt before. If you want to reach us, you can comment on wherever we put this, probably YouTube to start. If there's any other way people want to contact you, do any of you guys have Twitter handles, Instagram, Pinterest, Friendster, MySpace?
I think we're gonna post
up.
up.
We're gonna make some podcast centric. I think social
email
media
addresses and
for us, so you guys can get a hold of us. But like I said, that level of professionalism so high, we don't have that yet.
Well, if you want to find me on Twitter, my name is Ray's Gaming Rants on Twitter. You can find me there, and you can tell me how much I suck. We have Steve here. We have Paul.
Hey.
I will convince them to make personal stuff, so you can yell at them too. And we will also make more centralized stuff, so in case you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to tell me you're a Prince of Nigeria and you need my bank account information.
Tell me how much you hate me
for
not liking Shadow of Colossus.
We're awaiting that hate mail. Yeah.
I would love to get some hate mail, some sweet hate mail. But until next time, folks, this has been, what's our name? They Play Games. Thank you very much for listening. Or not, I don't know. Bye.